August 17, 1943. 9:30 in the morning, Rechlin Test Center, 90 kilometers north of Berlin. Oberleutnant Hans-Joachim Jabs stood on the airfield, staring at what he considered the ugliest aircraft he'd ever laid eyes on. The captured American P-38 Lightning sat under armed guard, twin booms jutting out like an afterthought, twin engines, a central nacelle that looked like it had been designed by a committee that couldn't agree on anything. Everything about it violated every principle of German aircraft aesthetics. Jabs had been pulled from his unit, Nachtschichtschwader 1, Night Fighter Wing 1, just 3 days earlier. The order came directly from Luftwaffe High Command. Combat pilot perspective required. Rechlin engineers need operational assessment. He didn't understand why they needed a night fighter pilot to evaluate a day fighter. He didn't understand why this particular aircraft warranted such urgency. But as he walked closer, as the morning sun glinted off those twin Allison engines, Jabs felt something he hadn't experienced in 50 combat victories. Unease, not from the aircraft itself, but from what it represented. Something the Rechlin engineers were about to reveal. Something that would make him understand why Reichsmarschall Goering had personally ordered this evaluation kept classified at the highest level. Let me take you back 3 days. August 14, 1943. 10:15 at night. IVNJG-1 Operations Room, Lumberg. Jabs had just returned from a night intercept mission. 2 RAF Lancasters confirmed destroyed over Hamburg, his 49th and 50th victories. A teletype message was waiting for him. OBLTJABS report Rechlin Test Center 816 August stop Luftwaffe High Command priority stop combat evaluation captured enemy aircraft stop. His Staffelkapitän looked concerned. They're pulling you off operations for aircraft evaluation? Jabs didn't answer. In 2 years of frontline combat, he'd never been summoned to Rechlin. Test pilots evaluated captured aircraft. Engineers wrote technical reports. Combat pilots flew missions. This was highly irregular. The next morning, Jabs flew a Ju-52 transport to Rechlin. The facility sprawled across 400 hectares, hangars, test ranges, wind tunnels, laboratories. Germany's primary aircraft testing and development center. He was met by Hauptmann Klaus Becker, senior technical officer. Becker's first words, "Oberleutnant, what we're about to show you is classified Geheim Kommandantschaft. You will discuss this evaluation with no one outside this facility." They walked past rows of captured Allied aircraft, Spitfires, P-47 Thunderbolts, B-17 bombers, all bearing Luftwaffe test markings. Then Becker stopped in front of Hangar 7. The P-38 Lightning, captured intact in March after an emergency landing in occupied France. We've conducted 47 hours of ground testing and 12 hours of flight testing. Becker's expression was grim. Reichsmarschall Goering wants an operational assessment from combat pilots, specifically pilots with twin-engine experience. Jabs had 800 hours in the Bf-110, Germany's twin-engine heavy fighter. He understood why they'd chosen him. What he didn't understand was why Becker looked like he was delivering a death sentence. 9:45 hours, Hangar 7. The P-38 sat under floodlights. Becker handed Jabs a technical dossier. "We'll walk through the aircraft systematically. I want your assessment as a combat pilot, not an engineer." Jabs circled the Lightning slowly. Twin Allison V-1710 engines, 1,475 horsepower each. Liquid-cooled, 12-cylinder. Counter-rotating propellers to eliminate torque. The twin-boom design looked ungainly. The central nacelle, cockpit, and armament with a nose wheel seemed like an afterthought. "Your first impression?" Becker asked. "Ugly," Jabs said flatly. "Asymmetric visibility. The booms create blind spots. In a dogfight, a Bf-109 would exploit those angles." Becker nodded. "That was our initial assessment, but keep examining." Jabs climbed onto the wing. The construction was different. Flush rivets, smooth skin, no visible gaps or irregularities. He ran his hand along the engine cowling. "The tolerances are remarkably tight, tighter than anything we're producing." "Precision interchangeable parts," Becker said. "Every component manufactured to identical specifications, no hand-fitting required during assembly." Jabs had watched Bf-110s being assembled at Gotha. Skilled workers hand-fitted panels, adjusted tolerances, filed edges. Every aircraft was slightly different, unique. This P-38 looked like it had been stamped out by a machine. "The armament?" Jabs asked. Becker led him to the nose. 120 Hispano cannon, 4.50 caliber Browning machine guns, all nose-mounted, concentrated firepower, no convergence issues like wing-mounted guns. Jabs understood immediately. German fighters mounted weapons in the wings, MG-150-120 cannons, MG-131 machine guns. Pilots had to calculate convergence distance. Fire too close or too far and half your rounds missed. The P-38's nose armament eliminated that problem entirely. Point and shoot. Combat effectiveness? Jabs asked. Devastating at close range, Becker said. But that's not what concerns us. He gestured toward the engines. We need to show you something else. Come. 10:30 hours, engine test cell. One of the P-38's Allison V-1710 engines sat mounted on a test stand. Rechlin engineers had completely disassembled it. Every component labeled, measured, analyzed with German precision. Becker handed Jabs a technical report. Read the flight test summary. Page 7. Jabs scanned the document. His eyes stopped cold on one paragraph. Test pilot Lieutenant Werner Hoffman conducted single-engine failure simulation at 6,000 meters altitude. Right engine shut down completely. Aircraft maintained level flight. No significant loss of control authority. Pilot reported aircraft surprisingly manageable on single engine. Jabs looked up sharply. Hoffman flew this for 90 minutes on one engine, Becker said. He flew a complete circuit, climbed to 7,000 meters, conducted combat maneuvers, and landed normally. On one engine. For Jabs, this changed everything. The Bf-110, his aircraft, his 800 hours of experience, was a death trap with single-engine failure, asymmetric thrust, uncontrollable yaw. Pilots bilayed out rather than attempt a single-engine landing. He'd lost 3 squadron mates to engine failures. Good pilots, experienced men. Dead because the Bf-110 simply couldn't fly on one engine. How? Jabs asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Becker walked him through the engineering. Counter-rotating propellers eliminate torque asymmetry. The twin-boom design distributes weight symmetrically. Massive vertical stabilizers provide directional stability. And look at this, he pointed to the engine mount. The engines are mounted close to the fuselage centerline, minimal moment arm. When one engine fails, the yaw force is manageable. Jabs stared at the disassembled engine. Every component was identical to its counterpart, interchangeable, standardized. The Bf-110 has hand-fitted engine mounts, Jabs said quietly. Every aircraft is different, asymmetric weight distribution. When an engine fails, he didn't finish the sentence. Becker nodded. The Americans designed redundancy into the airframe from the beginning. We designed for performance. They assumed engines would fail. We assumed they wouldn't. In that moment, Jabs realized something profound. This wasn't about individual aircraft performance. This was about design philosophy. German engineering optimized for peak performance. American engineering optimized for survival. And in combat, survival mattered more than speed. 11:45 hours, Rechlin briefing room. Becker spread maps across the table. The P-38's combat radius, he said, pointing to technical specifications. With drop tanks, 650 miles, without 450 miles. Jabs studied the numbers, then he looked at the map of Europe. 650 miles from England covered all of occupied France, all of Belgium, and half of Germany. That's triple our best fighter range, Jabs said. Correct, Becker replied. The Bf-109G has 350-mile range with drop tank. The FW-190A, 320 miles. The Bf-110G, 450 miles maximum. Becker drew circles on the map. This is what American P-38s can do from English bases. They can escort bombers to Berlin. They can escort bombers to Munich. They can escort bombers anywhere in the Reich. For Jabs, this meant his entire tactical doctrine was obsolete. German fighter tactics relied on bombers being unescorted. Intercept them beyond escort range, attack from altitude, break off before escorts arrive. If American fighters could escort bombers to any target in Germany, there was no beyond escort range. How? Jabs asked. The fuel capacity. Becker pulled out fuel system diagrams. The P-38 carries 410 gallons internal fuel. With 2 150-gallon drop tanks, 710 gallons total. The Allison engines are remarkably fuel-efficient at cruise power. Specific fuel consumption of 0.48 pounds per horsepower hour. He did the math on a chalkboard. At 25,000 feet cruise power, 1,200 RPM, the P-38 burns 80 gallons per hour. That's 8.8 hours endurance with drop tanks. At 290 miles per hour cruise speed, that's 2,550 miles maximum range. Combat radius, accounting for combat power reserves and tactical maneuvering, 650 miles. Jabs compared this mentally to the Bf-109G. German fighters carried 88 gallons internal with a 66-gallon drop tank, 154 gallons total. The DB-605 engine burned 72 gallons per hour at cruise. That was 2.1 hours endurance at 280 miles per hour. 590 miles maximum range. Combat radius, 350 miles. The numbers were devastating. The P-38 had 4.6 times the fuel capacity of a Bf-109, nearly triple the combat radius, and it carried that fuel in a twin-engine airframe that could survive single-engine failure. "What happens," Jabs asked slowly, "when they start escorting bomber formations to Berlin?" Becker's expression turned even grimmer. "We've calculated that scenario. If 100 P-38s escort a bomber formation and we scramble 200 Bf-109s to intercept, our fighters have 15 minutes of combat time before they must break off for fuel. The P-38s can stay over the target for 90 minutes. He drew engagement timelines on the board. Our pilots attack, expend ammunition, break off for fuel. The P-38s remain. Fresh German fighters scramble, engage, break off. The P-38s remain. By the time the bombers egress, our fighters are grounded for refueling." Jabs understood the mathematics of attrition immediately. "They don't need to shoot us down, they just need to outlast us." "Exactly," Becker said. "And this," he tapped the P-38 technical drawing, "is only one of their long-range fighters. Intelligence reports the Americans are developing the P-51 Mustang with even greater range." For Jabs, this meant something he'd never considered in 50 combat victories. Germany could win every tactical engagement and still lose the strategic war. 1:00 p.m. Rechlin Industrial Analysis Section. Becker led Jabs into a secured room. Tables covered with production reports, intelligence summaries, reconnaissance photographs. "What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest level," Becker said. "Reichsminister Speer's office compiled this data from multiple intelligence sources." He opened a folder marked GHEIM, U.S. Aircraft Production 1943. "The Americans have produced 10,037 P-38 Lightnings between 1941 and now. Current production rate, approximately 200 per month at Lockheed's Burbank facility." Jabs did the mental arithmetic. "That's 2,400 per year." "Correct. Now compare that to German twin-engine fighter production." Becker pulled out Luftwaffe production reports. "We're producing approximately 150 Bf-110s per month, 1,800 per year." The ratio was concerning but not catastrophic. "So they're outproducing us but not overwhelmingly." Becker's expression darkened. "That's just the P-38. Now add the P-47 Thunderbolt. Republic Aviation is producing 350 per month. The P-51 Mustang, North American Aviation, is ramping up to 400 per month. The P-40 Warhawk, Curtiss, is still producing 200 per month." He wrote the numbers on a chalkboard. American fighter production, August 1943. P-38 Lightning, 200-month P-47 Thunderbolt, 350-month P-51 Mustang, 400-month projected P-40 Warhawk, 200-month total, 1,150 fighters per month. German fighter production, August 1943. Bf-109. ~1000/month FW-190, ~450/month Bf-110, ~150/month total, 1,600 fighters per month. Jabs studied the numbers. "We're still outproducing them." "In fighters, yes," Becker said. "But look at engine production." He pulled out another report. "The P-38 uses Allison V-1710 engines. Allison's Indianapolis plant is producing these engines for multiple aircraft types: P-38s, P-40s, P-39s, P-63s. Becker pointed to reconnaissance photographs of American factories. "But the P-47 Thunderbolt uses a completely different engine. The Pratt & Whitney R-2800 Double Wasp, 18-cylinder air-cooled radial, 2,800 cubic inches displacement, 2,000 horsepower." He showed Jabs production data. Pratt & Whitney is producing R-2800 engines at multiple facilities: East Hartford, Kansas City, combined output over 2,000 engines per month. For Jabs, this was when the true scale became horrifyingly apparent. "They're not just building more aircraft," Jabs said slowly. "They're building redundant production capacity, multiple engine types, multiple manufacturers. If we bomb one factory, 10 others continue production," Becker finished. "And here's what truly concerns Reichsminister Speer." He pulled out the final documents, photographs of American factories, vast assembly halls, production lines stretching hundreds of meters. "This is Willow Run, Ford Motor Company's bomber plant in Michigan, one B-24 Liberator bomber every 63 minutes. This is Boeing's Seattle facility, producing B-17 Flying Fortresses at similar rates." Becker showed photograph after photograph. Consolidated Aircraft in San Diego, Douglas Aircraft in Long Beach, North American Aviation in Kansas City, Lockheed in Burbank. The Americans aren't just outproducing us in aircraft, Becker said quietly. They're outproducing us in industrial capacity by an order of magnitude we cannot match. He showed Jabs one final photograph, an aerial reconnaissance image of the Willow Run plant. This single factory, one factory, is larger than all of Messerschmitt's production facilities combined. And the Americans have dozens of factories this size. In that moment, Jabs understood what Becker had been leading him toward all day. This wasn't an evaluation of a captured aircraft. This was an evaluation of whether Germany could win an industrial war against America. And the answer was already calculated. 4:30 p.m., Rechlin Test Center tarmac. Jabs stood alone beside the P-38 Lightning. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the twin booms. He thought about the numbers Becker had shown him. American production, 1,150 fighters per month, 13,800 per year. German production, 1,600 fighters per month, 19,200 per year. On paper, Germany was winning the production war, but Jabs understood what the numbers didn't show. German production required skilled workers hand-fitting components, custom adjustments, every aircraft slightly different. Production bottlenecked by craftsmanship. American production used interchangeable parts, unskilled workers, assembly line processes, production bottlenecked only by raw materials. And America had unlimited raw materials. He thought about the P-38's redundancy, twin engines, counter-rotating propellers, asymmetric thrust compensation, designed assuming engines would fail. German fighters were designed assuming engines wouldn't fail, optimized for performance, not survival. He thought about the 650-mile combat radius. American fighters that could escort bombers anywhere in the Reich. German fighters with 350-mile radius, forced to break off engagement for fuel while American escorts remained over the target. He thought about the R-2800 engine, 2,000 horsepower, mass-produced at 2,000 units per month. The DB-605 engine, 1,475 horsepower, produced at 1,500 units per month, each requiring skilled engine builders. The mathematics were inescapable. Germany was fighting a war of quality against quantity, and quantity had its own quality. Jabs had 50 confirmed victories. He was an ace, one of the Luftwaffe's best. But if America could produce 10 fighters for everyone he shot down, his skill was irrelevant. If American fighters could stay over the target for 90 minutes while German fighters had 15 minutes of combat time, tactics were irrelevant. If American bombers could strike any target in Germany with fighter escort, air defense was impossible. A staff car approached. Becker stepped out. "Your assessment, Oberleutnant?" Jabs was silent for a long moment. "The P-38 is an ugly aircraft," he finally said. "Asymmetric visibility, ungainly design. A Bf-109 pilot with good tactics can exploit its weaknesses." He paused. "But that's not what matters. What matters is that the Americans can produce 200 of these per month. What matters is that they designed it to survive engine failures that would kill a Bf-110 pilot. What matters is that they can escort bombers to any target in the Reich." He turned to face Becker. "What matters is that we're fighting an enemy that doesn't need to build better aircraft. They just need to build more aircraft, and they can build more aircraft than we can shoot down." Becker nodded slowly. "That's the assessment Reichsmarschall Goering needed to hear from a combat pilot." "Will it change anything?" Jabs asked. Becker's expression was answer enough. 3 days later, Jabs returned to IVNJG-1. He flew 47 more combat missions. He achieved 28 more confirmed victories, bringing his total to 78. He survived the war. But on August 17, 1943, standing beside that ugly American fighter on the Rechlin tarmac, Hans-Joachim Jabs understood something that no amount of tactical skill or individual courage could change. Germany had already lost. Thanks for watching. If you found this story valuable, please like and subscribe to the channel. We focus on bringing you forgotten stories and nuanced truths of World War II that deserve to be remembered. Where are you watching from? What other stories about the collapse of German military power would you like us to explore? Your engagement helps us continue bringing these important histories to light.